5, 4, 3, 2, 1. CTS podcast episode.
Did you hit record on that?
Yeah, I hit record on that. Episode 56. We've been gone for a little bit, but that's okay. Nothing eventful has really happened since the last time we recorded. So, yeah, we're pretty... This will be a short one. No, just kidding.
Yeah, not much has happened.
Aside from the largest conflict in Russia since...
In Europe.
In Europe. Yeah, that's what I meant. In Europe since World War II, probably.
Weird one. Yeah, definitely not. I don't think even though Western media and the Biden administration was calling it for a while, saying they were going to invade, I don't think anyone really thought it would be like this.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't really believe it, especially to the scale. Like, it kind of felt like the Crimea situation a little bit, where it's like, you're just, like, they're going to do a little bit, but you kind of just stop them there. It's a big deal right now.
Yeah, and the Ukrainians are holding out. So far, the Ukrainian president has stayed in Kyiv and is fighting alongside his country, which is cool. I was telling you about this yesterday, but he was a comedian 3 years ago.
Yeah.
His election was like kind of an upset.
Well, and he won in a landslide. It was an upset that he won in a landslide.
Yeah, Russian-speaking, young, energetic guy, and Putin wants to have some regime change, it seems.
Yeah, because the whole thing is that they don't want Ukraine to join NATO, right?
That's what they say. Yeah. I don't know. I can't. I don't want to think about what Putin's true intentions are, but at least the Biden administration and somewhat like national security and analysts believe that he's going to try to reestablish the USSR.
Yeah, but from what they've said so far is that, or from what Russia has said, is just that
that's what they
don't
claim.
Want Russia or don't want Ukraine to join NATO. Yeah.
Which I kind of struggle to find the truth in that, because it seems like if that was their only request, the West would have accepted and said, "You're not going to join NATO, just don't invade Ukraine." That seems like it'd be a fair trade.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, but what's weird is it wasn't even like the West was like, it didn't seem like Ukraine tried to join NATO before Russia invaded. It was like
they didn't formally try,
did,
but they've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, but you'd think you'd need something to set it off, like an official attempt or something to it. It seemed like it came out of nowhere a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, here's the thing. If Putin tries to push into Poland, I think the United States would respond. I don't know if other Eastern European nations would respond as strongly as the United States would.
Well, NATO would respond, right? Because Poland is a NATO country.
Yeah, yes, but historically NATO has been less than fervent in their aggression or anti-aggression towards Russia threats.
But has a NATO country been invaded since?
Not yet. No.
So I think it'd be interesting to see, because I can't imagine, because up to this point, any conflict, the other members of NATO have been able to kind of skirt around, because they're like, well, it doesn't involve directly a member nation. I feel like if Poland got invaded, it'd be a big deal.
I think it'd be a big deal. I don't know if it would reach the level of a World War III. It might. I think it would all depend on whether China gets involved or not. Because I think if Russia invades Poland and NATO responds as strongly as they say they were going to, they would destroy any Russian presence in Western Europe or parts of Eastern Europe almost immediately. The Russian economy would collapse.
Well, it's already collapsing.
Right. I guess Putin is trying to offset those sanctions by, we haven't sanctioned their energy yet. And but it seems like they're continuing to push. It seems like they might actually get to that step eventually. And they're trying to offset those sanctions with economic help from China. So I think that if Russia were to push into Poland without the backing of China, it would not be World War III. We would push them out of Eastern Europe very quickly. It would be the end of any Russian presence in Eastern Europe or Western Europe. But if China were to back Russia and, for example, were to invade Taiwan simultaneously to Russia invading Poland and trying to split the West against each other in that way, I could see that happening. I could see Russia invading Poland, and during that time, China takes that time to invade Taiwan, take Taiwan back, and then assist Russia economically to the point where it becomes like a standstill in Poland. There's no movement one way or the other, because I think it's going to be I think if China were to get involved and back Russia militarily, it would be World War III, and it would be insane.
Do you think? I just don't think China would get involved. I don't know. From what they've said, and just for Taiwan, like, it seems like an awfully high cost just to take Taiwan.
Yeah, who knows what China's end goal is? It seems that China's a lot more. I mean, we have proof that China's a lot more calculated than Russia, because I couldn't see China doing something like this. Can you imagine if China just invaded the Himalayas and invaded it and, pushed into India? I mean, China would never do that.
Yeah.
So it seems like China's a lot more calculated than Russia. This seems like a particularly uncalculated move for Putin to do, but he has to know that. He had to have known before doing this that the sanctions were going to be insane. So he has to know that he can at least temporarily offset the effect of the sanctions with something else. And I can't imagine Ukraine as his end goal, right? I can't imagine he cares about Ukraine that much to go into Ukraine, cause the total economic collapse of what little remains of Russia's infrastructure, and not have an end goal. He's smarter than that.
Yeah. It's just so, like, it just doesn't.
But he did it with Belarus. So.
Yeah, and Crimea. Maybe he just thought it was going to be like the Crimea thing, where, like, kind of minimal conflict, like, you win a victory against kind of NATO powers, and it kind of all, right? Because nothing really came of the Crimea thing. Like, that happened a while ago, and it's kind of had not super long lasting effects, but I don't know. It is weird. I don't get where it's going at this point, because it doesn't seem like there's massive kind of benefits to Russia for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird, because I still think that even if you put China, Russia, I mean, if you were to think of an actual world war and what the sides would be, you'd have China, Russia, North Korea. You'd have a lot of smaller Eastern European countries, Crimea, Belarus. What other countries are in there that would support with the East? I think that's
not a lot.
Vietnam. But not a lot. And then they're surrounded by, to the east, they have Japan, which is one of the biggest military powers in the world.
Japan.
To the south, they have Australia, New Zealand. They have India, which would side with the West or remain neutral. And then in the West, you are essentially landlocked by just a crap ton of Western European countries that their militaries have been propped up by U.S. tax dollars for the past several decades. So seems like there's not really a way that you could push into Poland successfully, even if China backed them. It just doesn't I don't see how it could happen. But then again, we don't really know. I think it's hard to say just how strong militarily Russia and China would be if they combined forces.
Well, and there's little enough benefit for Russia, let alone China. I don't see any benefit for China for getting involved besides, like, testing the waters of what would happen if they tried to take Taiwan, or I don't know, Tibet, maybe. It just seems too high a price to pay to kind of do a trial run on what you're gonna do.
Well, I think it would take. I mean, you'd have to think of it like how Russia thinks of it. You'd have to put China in a position where they think that the West is expanding so much that the West will inevitably attack China or inevitably be aggressive towards China, whether that means, protecting Taiwan or pushing into the border of China with military bases. I mean, I think China would have to feel threatened before they join sides in any war.
Yeah, and they've come out and said didn't they come out and say they wanted peace?
Yeah, but they said we shouldn't assume assume what the intentions of the Russians are. We shouldn't assume that I don't know. They more sided with. They more just attacked the United States really than doing anything. But
yeah. Well, did you see the Taliban came out with a statement?
Oh, really?
And said
their government came out with a statement. What did they have to say?
We hope for peace. We're regarding the situation in Ukraine.
That's good.
We don't want fighting. And it was kind of weird. I think I'm 99% sure it was real.
See, and they more than anyone, I think, have some legitimacy in calls for peace.
That is usually when I'm thinking about peace. That's the first place my mind goes.
That would be a decent place to have some negotiations. Is in the Taliban's, completely destroyed military bases
Kabul.
And industrial centers. So. Maybe me and you can set something up between President Zelensky and Putin.
I'll give him a call.
Yeah.
I'll give him a call.
So if you want to call Putin, I can call Zelensky and we can see if we can't set something up with the Taliban. So that should be an interesting one. But what else happened? Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown. Did you hear about that? Yes. First African-American nominee to the court. She was nominated yesterday.
African-American woman. Yeah.
Yes. Ketanji Brown got nominated to the Supreme Court. I think Lindsey Graham said that she was one of the only ones he would support. So they'll have the votes.
Yeah.
They'll for sure have the votes. And Lindsey Graham, funnily enough, has voted for every Supreme Court nominee for the past 20 years or something like that. Since he's been in the Senate, because he thinks that it's the president's right to choose, which is kind of cool.
Which is funny,
especially
for
after
all
what they did with Kavanaugh.
All the freaking out over that Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, and then it's okay, your first nominee goes through fine one. without a hitch,
right?
But it probably also helps that it's replacing a liberal justice.
Yeah.
So there's less to kind of fight for. But
right.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. But Ukraine's definitely the big news story of the last week. We've missed a lot of stuff, but it's hard not to stay primarily on the war in Europe. Have you seen the videos of people fleeing Ukraine going to Poland?
Yeah, there's lines.
Thousands and thousands of people in train stations just trying to get out of the country. It's wild.
It's weird, and I'm kind of surprised. Poland has, I believe they have or did have a very right-leaning, very Trumpish president that was very anti-immigration. So it was interesting that NATO pushed them to open their borders.
Yeah,
I think NATO gave him an ultimatum I don't think it was can you open your borders. It was more
you're going to open your borders. Which, and it's hard because if you do it kind of on your terms, you have a little bit of control over it, because people were leaving Ukraine and going to Poland no matter what. And it'd be very tricky to close your borders like that while everyone's fleeing west and not be looked at in a very negative light by everyone else. But I did see an interesting thing that people were talking about, where this is the first it's one of the first major conflicts where people have phones and stuff, the internet, where so much stuff is like videoed and like posted online, at least as far as kind of like civilians are seeing it. Like I feel like I've seen way more stuff posted online from
Well,
this
you got to
than
figure in
anything else.
Afghanistan, a lot of people don't have. I mean, there's not a lot of internet.
It's
and
it's
not many people have
harder.
access
It's
to
harder
TikTok.
it's harder to get videos out. Whereas like Kiev is like a huge super modern city with like, yeah, it's just a big modern city, and so like that they're attacking that. There's a million people like videoing, posting pictures, videos of all that stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about how, assuming World War III would happen, if the United States would be able to get invaded. We should talk about that. I thought that was interesting.
We both kind of agreed that we don't think so. Think it's highly unlikely.
So you'd have to push in through the coast, unless you were to go up through South America and Mexico. So if
But
you
I
were,
think you'd have to
you
go up
could-
through South America and Mexico, right?
that's that is your only way to get through to the United States, I
Yeah.
think, because if you were to go through Canada, you could potentially beat Canada in a war. You could potentially make enough progress to enter the United States through the north. But I think that the United States and NATO would have such a large presence in Canada already, whereas Mexico would have NATO would have a much lesser presence, or whoever is defending who would have a much lesser presence and military in the south. So if you were to push up through Mexico, you'd have to defeat Mexico on the coast, you push in through southern Mexico, and the first state you'd run into is Texas, pretty much.
That like, yeah, Texas you'd probably push through, or California.
Texas is tough too, because you push through Texas, and I can't remember what percent of their population is armed, but I think it has some of the highest numbers in the country as far as private citizens that are armed.
How do you think if there was?
Yes, I do. I already know what you're going to ask. You're going to ask, if you think there was a full-out war, do you think the fact that people are armed would actually make a difference?
No, I was actually gonna ask, do you think the U.S. government would move people out of the area
Ooh.
to set up to like keep people away from the area, so that wouldn't even be like,
I don't think they would move people, but I think they'd give them the option to
they'd
move.
give them the chance?
Because, and I think if the United States were to ever be invaded, they'd just invoke the whatever amendment it is in the Constitution that gives Congress the right to call up a militia, and everyone would, between the ages of like 18 and 40, would be required to fight. So I think that, and that's another reason, is like, I mean, how many guns are there for each person in the United States? It's something crazy.
I think
It's like 2 or 3 to 1. It's something crazy like that.
Let's see. Oh, I don't have my phone to look it up.
But yeah, I think, and I mean, if you push through the coast, how do you push through the coast? I mean, if you were trying to get directly into the United States, it'd be like
you can't push through the coast. It's just not
what
possible.
was that place? Frickin' World War II. It was the big D-Day. Where did they push through? They were trying to push
Normandy?
through. Yeah,
In
yeah.
France, but that's Europe, so you're
That's what I'm
close,
saying. That's what I'm
right?
saying. So it's like, picture that, but a way, 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 way more massive scale. I mean, you would have to push through California, Florida. I mean, I guess you could go through the. I just don't. Yeah, I mean, the United States has so many ships that you wouldn't be able
and
to get through.
It's just too far to like sustain a war, because you send your troops, and if you're attacking on the coast, where do they go? Like, do they just directly land and attack? So you have to send like the entirety of your navy to, like, there's no like attacking multiple places. Like, it's too big a coast. It just doesn't.
So I saw something. I saw someone making the argument that I actually have 2 different points that I thought were interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone that was giving their take on the situation in Ukraine, and he thinks that they invade Ukraine, whether or not they kill Zelensky or replace him is a moot point. After they invade Ukraine, Russia's going to back out and say, please remove the sanctions. Woe is me. We can't sustain this long term financially. Remove your sanctions. We'll pull out of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Once they pull out of Ukraine, they've made their point that whenever they want to, if and when, they can invade Ukraine and completely dismantle their entire government, which makes the Ukrainian regime completely at the behest of the Russian government. So he thinks that Russia's goal is to prove to Ukraine that they can destroy their entire country in days, back out because of the sanctions. The West will declare a win, and Putin will be laughing all the way to the bank because now he can install. Now whoever is in Ukraine will be pro-Russian.
Yeah, you've just done an awful lot of damage because Ukraine still has elections, right?
Yeah.
So how's he, like, are all these hundreds of thousands of people getting displaced going to go, man, this guy is pro-Russian, but, like, I think, I don't know. It's hard with elections. If it was in a country that was a little more, like, you could just, like, instate a ruler, I might. I just don't buy that you'd go, well, we'll prove our point, and that will also convince the hundreds of thousands of people that we, like, upended their lives to also support Russia.
So the next point I want to make is people are saying that Putin's threat, that consequences unlike the world has ever seen, if he were to follow through with that, there's a person, I can't remember where I was watching it, but he was saying that Russia could, if they wanted to, they have interballistic nuclear missiles, and they believe that they already know where to strike in the United States, and they say that their missiles would not be stopped by our defense systems. And so that's how they would enter the United States, is they would completely dismantle us on the coast with nuclear bombs and then stage an invasion.
Russia would be gone, though. Russia would be obliterated off the face of the map if they launched ballistic missiles.
Right. I guess that's the
right. I mean, that's the whole nuclear question is mutually assured destruction, right? If you
So this guy's point was they already know where our nuclear missiles are, and they would destroy any launching sites that we have. But my thought was there's no way they know where all of them are, and if they do, he was saying they have spy planes flying over the United States all the time. They have intelligence from Europe. But the thing is, you have so many nations with nuclear weapons nowadays.
And they also can't launch nuclear missiles that we might not be able to stop them, but we can certainly detect them before they hit.
The nuclear missiles that we have intelligence on, but some people think that there are nuclear missiles that can remain undetected because of they could hit the United States before we detect them.
I don't know, but we also, we have nuclear weapons like planted all over the world.
Yeah.
So there's no way they can hit every single site in the entire world, and we can't detect any of them.
Yeah. Dude, how crazy would that be?
That feels like
nuclear warfare.
Just blatant speculation at something, because the idea that they know every single nuclear site seems kind of ludicrous. Like, I don't think there's any possibility they know every single nuclear site. And I don't think it's possible that they could have nuclear missiles, like intercontinental ballistic, like missiles that we'd have no chance to detect.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just this guy's opinion.
Even at the site, even in the fact that you'd see them, like physically see them, if you were launching them to anywhere not on the coast, right? They've got to fly. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anyone's that stupid to start a nuclear war.
Dude, I wonder. I bet you the security measures in Washington D.C. are even crazier than what anyone has ever seen. Like, you know how you can look up what security measures are on the White House, and there's like anti-ballistic missile detectors and all sorts of stuff. I bet it's so much crazier. I bet there's so much crazy stuff at the White House and all over D.C.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know like how much stuff there is that like, what's the trade-off of, like, we can't have it out because it's so secret. We don't want anybody to know we have it. And, like, but we need, like, the best technology we can get, like, where that cutoff is.
You would think that with how much money we are spending on the military, there's some stuff that other countries just have never seen.
Oh, I'm
before.
sure there's top secret stuff. There's got to be, like, top secret stuff that no one has that's, like, brand new. I mean, right? The track record of, like, even if you just look at planes, like, the stealth planes and all that stuff was, like, just nuts.
So I told you about this yesterday, but they are broadcasting on Ukrainian national television how to make Molotov cocktails.
Well, I was watching on the BBC today, and it was videos of people making thousands of Molotov cocktails.
And just I saw a video of them on TikTok of just hundreds of people throwing it at a tank and just
really
hundreds of Molotov cocktails.
I
A
didn't
tank
see
driving,
that.
and there was a crowd, an entire crowd, and all these people just pull it out. I thought
That's
I sent
wild.
it to
Well,
you.
I saw him. It was I was kind of shocked that the BBC was, like, broadcasting, like, these people making Molotov it was kind of weird, but
Especially since anyone can just go buy the ingredients needed to make a Molotov cocktail, right?
it's
Right? Can we not?
I don't
talk
know.
about that?
I don't know.
Can we not talk about how to make
I
a
have
Molotov
no idea.
cocktail?
But yeah, it's crazy that you're, like, that it's to that point where they're like, we want citizens to fight, like, if you have a chance. And there's, like, a bunch of just, like, armed militias, like, roaming around that
So I'm gonna ask you a question, and don't gaslight me. Okay? Would you die for the United States?
Huh.
I had that off. That's so weird.
I think it probably depends on the situation.
Let's say World War III.
World War III here,
Yeah, they're trying to invade the United States.
they're in the US.
Yeah.
I think if it was, like, a last resort.
So
I
you
would.
wouldn't be the guy that, like, you're like, I'll do it, and you strap a bomb to your
There's
chest and you
so
run
many
out.
people online saying stuff like that are, like, dumb 14-year-old kids saying stuff like that I don't know. It's just dumb.
I wouldn't be that guy. I would not be like, I'd be like looking around like, okay, who's gonna do it?
Who's that guy?
Who is he? Come on.
Yeah.
I think I'd die for my country, but I don't, like you said, I wouldn't volunteer to die.
Luckily, I don't think we'll ever be in that position based on our conversation earlier.
I could see there being another draft.
You think?
Yeah, dude, I think if Russia, hypothetically, if Russia were to push into Poland or other NATO countries, I think there will 1,000% be a draft. Unless,
We have a giant military.
yeah,
A giant standing military. Like I don't even know, like, it's honestly hard to fathom how large the military is. Like, I don't think it's quite to the levels where our standing military is large, like, is our largest military ever, including, like, wars with drafts. But with just the technology and all that stuff, I think it'd take a lot for a draft. And there'd be massive backlash.
you think?
Massive backlash.
I mean, there's massive backlash when they tried it in Vietnam.
yeah, exactly. And do you think we've gotten more? Like, I think there's a lot more people that are anti-war,
Yeah, for
anti-government than ever before.
sure. That's true.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think there will ever be a draft. It'd take, like, a larger conflict than there's ever been before for there to be another draft. By, like, a long shot. Like, I don't even know.
I think as soon as China gets in a war, as soon as China sides with as soon as China decides if and when they want to get involved into a war, I think there would be a draft. Because China would have too many backers. They're setting up military bases in Africa. They're setting up military bases in South America. I think
But we have giant military bases.
Think of China's population, dude. Think of imagine that's like the Third Reich gone Danko mode. The size of their military.
If they drafted everybody, but so we're in Utah, Hill Air Force Base, the one kind of real military base in Utah, is the largest employer in Utah. Hill Air Force Base.
Weird.
We have huge companies. We have really big companies in Utah. For a military base to be the largest employer in Utah, and how many hundreds of military bases do we have across the country, across the world? With it'd be interesting to know what the size of the military is, but I don't know. It'd take something insane for there to be a draft, I think.
All right. Should we wrap this one up?
Wrap this one up.
CTS podcast episode. What's the episode, Henry? Pull it up. 56.